Your alarm never goes off because you disabled it 4 years ago. Your body wakes you at 5:52 every single morning, unprompted, the way it's supposed to. No hustle culture mantra taught you this. No podcast bro screaming about 4 a.m. cold plunges. You just go to bed at 9:45 and let your nervous system do what it was designed to do when nothing is chasing it. You reach for the same gray Henley you've owned since a presidential administration ago. You have 6 of them, all identical, hanging in a row like a barcode. This isn't minimalism as a personality. It's the simple discovery that a closet full of decisions is just a closet full of tiny taxes on your morning, and you stopped paying that tax years ago. Downstairs, you grind your own beans instead of stopping at the drive-thru. That habit alone puts back roughly $1,600 a year. But the money was always the least interesting part of that decision. The real prize was becoming someone who runs the math once, decides, and never relitigates it. Most people re-argue the same $6 purchase in their head 500 times a year. You settled it in 2013 and moved on. While the coffee drips, you check one screen for 90 seconds. The only 90 seconds all day you'll spend looking at money. $1.94 million sits inside a boring, almost embarrassingly simple 3-fund portfolio. A total U.S. market index, a total international index, and a bond fund that's been quietly maturing since you turned 44. You haven't touched a single share in 17 years. Not during the 2020 freefall when your balance shrank by the price of a house every few weeks. Not in 2022 when every finance influencer on the internet declared the whole system was cracking. You just kept feeding it every 2 weeks like a bill you owe your future self. $410,000 sits in home equity, fully yours. The deed tucked in a fireproof box beside your passport and your late mother's wedding ring. $240,000 sits in a taxable account. The bridge that lets you walk away from work before the government lets you touch your retirement funds. $71,000 sits in cash, doing almost nothing on purpose. That's not laziness, that's insurance. Cash isn't there to grow. It's there so you never have to sell your investments on their worst possible day. And $41,000 sits quietly in a custodial account for your godson, which not one person in your extended family knows exists. Total, $2.7 million, give or take whatever mood the market wakes up in. You shut the laptop. The market will do whatever it does today, and you will do nothing about it. That nothing took a decade to build, and it's the single most valuable skill you own. You drive a 2016 Accord with 132,000 miles, bought used, paid in full the week you bought it. At the light on 5th and Main, a brand new Rivian pulls up next to you. Sticker price somewhere north of $78,000. You'd bet money it's financed. Call it $1,150 a month for 6 years. You're not judging the guy behind the wheel. But you can't help running the number anyway. $1,150 a month, invested instead of financed, at a modest 8% return, becomes roughly $1.05 million in 25 years. That truck isn't a truck. It's a version of himself he's never going to meet. The light turns green. He's gone before you finish your sip of gas station coffee. Here's the part that throws people off. You still clock in. Operations director, 16 years at the same company, $128,000 a year. Solid money. Not, how does he own a paid-off house and a stuffed brokerage account money? Nobody in that building would guess the guy who reheats leftovers in the break room could write a check for the parking lot outside. You still work because you like the work, and because every paycheck now lands as pure surplus. That changes something in how you carry yourself in a meeting. When your VP floats a plan you think is reckless, you say so calmly, out loud, in front of everyone. You can afford to be honest, or the most expensive currency in any office, because you're the only one in the room who's fully paid up. 18 months ago, they offered you a promotion. Bigger title, 25% more salary, roughly triple the meetings. You said politely, "I'll pass." Your boss looked at you like you'd turned down a winning lottery ticket. That raise would have moved your retirement date up by maybe 3 months. The stress of the new role would have taken more than 3 months off the other end. Money doesn't buy the yacht in your actual life. It buys the sentence, "No thank you," delivered without your voice shaking. Mid-morning, a younger coworker corners you by the fridge. Priya, 24, whip smart, visibly underwater. Can I ask you something kind of embarrassing? You seem like you've got this figured out. I've got $7,400 in credit card debt, and honestly, I couldn't tell you what half of it went to. You could lecture her. You don't. You remember being 24 with a balance that felt less like a number and more like a verdict on your character. Instead, you give her the only two sentences that actually rewired your life. Pay yourself first, automatically, before the money ever touches your hands, and never let a balance sit on anything that doesn't grow in value. That's the whole doctrine. Everything else is footnotes. You don't mention your net worth. You never do. But that afternoon, you send her the same beat-up personal finance book somebody handed you 20 years ago. Wealth doesn't only move through wills and inheritances. Sometimes it moves through a Slack message with a book title in it. Lunch is last night's rice and chicken, maybe $2.80 a plate. Around you, coworkers order $19 delivery and complain about money in the same sentence, without noticing the contradiction. You used to feel a flicker of smugness watching that. You're a little ashamed of that now. Somewhere past your first $500,000, the smugness burned off and something calmer replaced it. Indifference. Other people's spending stopped being a scoreboard. You were winning. You're not eating leftovers to prove a point. You genuinely don't want the delivery app version more. That's the part no influencer can package into a course because it can't be manufactured. Past a certain point, frugality stops being restraint and quietly becomes preference. Nobody's holding the door shut. You just like the room you're in. You read while you eat, not market news. You stopped checking daily financial headlines back in 2017, and your portfolio's performance improved almost immediately afterward. That's not a coincidence. That's a lesson. Across the cafeteria, a guy is hunched over his phone, day trading, jaw tight, thumb twitching on the screen. You feel something closer to tenderness than judgment. You were him once, for about 7 months in your late 20s. It cost you $9,000 in tuition to learn you weren't the customer in that game. You were the product. Your phone buzzes, not your financial advisor. You don't have one. It's your younger brother. His car's transmission just died. $1,600 he doesn't have. You can hear it in his voice, that particular tightness of someone rehearsing an apology for a problem that isn't his fault. Send me your account info, I've got it, you tell him. No, it's not a loan, cars break, that's not a moral failing. You move $1,600 out of the cash cushion. It'll refill on its own from surplus. You'll never even notice missing. Here's the math nobody puts in a video thumbnail. $1,600 is roughly 0.06% of your net worth. For your brother, it was a 5-alarm crisis about to land on a card charging 26% interest. The kind of debt that quietly balloons into $2,400 of stress over 18 months if nobody steps in. The best return you will ever generate isn't in a brokerage account. It's erasing an emergency from someone you love before it has time to compound against them. Mid-afternoon, a weak moment. A jacket you've had your eye on for a year drops to $340. You could buy it the way most people buy a coffee. It's already sitting in your cart. Then you run the old filter. Not, can I afford it? That question retired a long time ago. The real questions. Will I still want this in 30 days? Am I buying the object or the feeling attached to it? And who exactly am I buying it for? You sit longest with the third one. The honest answer most of the time is strangers. And your entire financial life was built on refusing to keep paying rent to strangers' opinions. You close the tab, not out of willpower, out of recognition. Maybe you'll buy it in a month. The espresso machine passed this exact filter 2 years ago, and you've used it every single day since without a flicker of regret. That's the system working correctly. The ritual was never a wall keeping things out. It's a filter. And filters are only useful because they let the right things through. If somebody ever discovers the real number, they'll assume crypto or an inheritance or a stock tip that hit. There was no inheritance. Your dad's layoff at 51 made sure of that. There was no single winning bet. Your best trade was never making a dramatic one. At 23, you started putting 15% of a $38,000 salary away, about $475 a month. And it felt at the time like amputation. Every raise after that, Half went to your life, and half went straight to the machine. Until the machine was quietly absorbing 30% of a six-figure income, and you'd stopped noticing the sting entirely. You stayed married. You stayed insured. You never took out a second car loan. You weren't a brilliant investor. You were just exceptionally hard to interrupt. 23 years. That's the entire secret. There is no secret, just a long, unremarkable hallway with no windows and no applause. Compound growth is the rare miracle that only performs for people who forget they're watching it. Your first $100,000 took 6 years to arrive. The second took 2.5. The most recent $100,000 took 4 months. The hallway has no windows, but it does have a door out the other side. And the door looks exactly like an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, like this one. You pull into the driveway around 5:45. Your neighbor Tom waves from his porch. Tom has a boat, a jet ski, 2 new SUVs in the driveway, and a home equity line he's been drawing against for years. Tom out-earns you. By every visible measure, Tom is winning. You'd bet Tom couldn't survive 4 months without a paycheck. You're not better than Tom. His boat builds real memories, and there's no spreadsheet that can price that. But you've also seen the other version of that story. You watched your own father get laid off at 53 with $6,000 in the bank and real fear in his eyes. At 18, in one cold, permanent moment, you decided nobody would ever do that to you. Every identical Henley, every paid-off Accord, every automatic transfer. That's an 18-year-old keeping a promise he made to himself decades ago. The neighborhood sees a modest brick house and an aging sedan. They can't see the promise underneath it. Invisible wealth is still wealth. Visible wealth half the time is just expensive noise. Dinner is with your wife. You didn't build any of this solo. On your third date 20 years ago, she told you she had $4,500 saved and an actual plan for it. You fell for her somewhere in that sentence. 3 real money arguments in 2 decades, each one resolved the same way. A standing meeting, first Sunday of the month, 30 minutes, coffee, the numbers laid out on the table between you. No ambushes, no hidden accounts, no surprises. Almost every money fight in a marriage isn't actually about math. It's about surprises. You two deleted the surprises years ago. After dinner, you walk your usual 2 miles. A podcast host you were listening to this morning asked his guest, "What's your number? When is it finally enough?" You crossed your number about $700,000 ago and nothing changed. No confetti fell. The number just became a bigger number. And you kept walking the same loop, still recognizably yourself. That's the lesson that only shows up after the money arrives. The finish line was never real. What money actually delivered arrived gradually, years earlier. The day you stopped flinching at the mailbox. The day a layoff rumor at work bored you instead of terrifying you. The day no thank you came out easily. Wealth was never the number on the screen. Wealth is the absence of emergencies in your life. Broken transmission, handled. Layoff scare, survivable. Market crash, irrelevant. Root canal, annoying, not catastrophic. 4 different disasters, 4 non-events. You're not a wealthy man. You're a machine that quietly converts money into calm. You read in bed, tomorrow, 1 meeting, a dentist appointment, and your godson's birthday next weekend. One day he'll open an envelope explaining exactly what's been growing for him since the year he was born. That letter will be the loudest thing your money will have ever said out loud. Today you earned $412, spent $34, gave away $1,600, and walked away from a $340 jacket. Nobody clapped. Nobody knows. Tomorrow the market opens, it rises or falls, and once again you'll do absolutely nothing. Beautifully. Because real money, once it's finally and permanently yours, goes almost completely silent. And so eventually do you. If this hit different, subscribe. Every week we break down one more real financial life you'll never see on a billboard. And drop your own number in the comments, not to brag, just to remind the next quiet millionaire reading this that they're not alone in that hallway.